I'm introducing Mrs. Monica Trichardt to you, and she will be talking to us, as you can see on the screen there, about visualization of geospatial data for school-based programs. Over to you, Monica.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Oops, let me just put on my video. So let's see what we'll be doing today. Well, my main aim for today is to create enthusiastic fans of geospatial data visualization. So I'm going to impart a little bit of skills to you today in terms of how you can do it. But in keeping with the rugby analogy, I won't be making Springboks of you today, just giving you the basic understanding of what it is, and we'll discuss in more detail what the benefits are and how we could use this in our own situations. So what is the game plan for today? Well, firstly, I'm going to stop using the rugby analogies now. And then we're first going to have a look at demystifying the concept of geocoding. And I'm going to do a bit of a demonstration as to how we could do these things. And then we'll discuss together, and I'll open the floor and give you a chance to maybe comment and give us examples of your own programs where you think you could use this and what the benefits could be. So hopefully later we'll have a chance to do a little bit of audience participation as well. So, demystifying geocoding. Well, geocoding is really just not mysterious. It is assigning a location to somewhere so that you can plot it on a map. I mean, we all geocode naturally all the time. If you think about it, if you want to go somewhere, you use Google Maps or you use Waze and you type in your location. It uses the latitude and longitude, and it finds the location on a map. So actually, it's something that we do all the time. But geocoding has actually been in effect for quite some time. Some clever person divided the world into latitude lines and longitude lines, as you can see in the picture, running across vertically and horizontally in the world. Using these lines, we can find and plot anywhere on the Earth's surface. So even in the middle of the ocean, where you might not have an address to put into Google Maps, you can find this your location using your relative position towards these lines. So the latitude line is our angular distance of a place north or south of the equator, north or south of the equator, and your longitude lines is your position east or west of the Greenwich meridian. So really we had to have a central point, and we chose the equator and the Greenwich line, and your relative position from that shows your point on the Earth. But you might think this is a little bit of a difficult situation. How do we find our positions on the Earth? Now, in my presentation today, I'm going to have to exit my presentation and actually go to different pages. I have to go to Google and I have to go to maybe Excel, because I want to show you how to do these things. So I'm going to have to exit and come back and share different files. So I hope you'll bear with me just a little bit so that I can find these things. So for now, I will just move on and not actually exit, and then I'll show you this a little bit later. Okay, so if we do manage to find the latitude and longitude for our locations, let's say we're looking at this example spreadsheet. We've got our schools who, for instance, participate in our program. Now, this could be any program. It could be competitions or Olympiads, or it could be school-based programs where maybe we've got a kind of a development program, NGO type program, where we're actually trying to maybe improve things in those schools, and these are the schools we've selected to apply an initiative. So there's our name of our school. We've got our national EMIS numbers there. We can add a bit of other details to our schools. And in the end, we've got our latitude and our longitude, which is the position on the map that Google or any other mapping software will use to find our this is basically how we've geocoded our schools by adding a latitude and a longitude to that school. I'm going to have to quickly move out. I do want to show you in Google, right? Please, could someone shout if you're not seeing my Google Drive? Let's go to, can you see it?
Yep. Yes, we can.
Okay, so let's say Brayton, we want to know what the geolocation is of Laerskool Brayton. Okay, actually, there we are. So if you want to know on Google Maps what the geolocation of any point is, you can actually just right click. Do you see there at the very top, you've got the geolocation, you've got the latitude and the longitude. And if you just click on that, it will say copied to the clipboard. So if you want to know what the geolocation is of this random place, Avalon Steel Project, you can click on that and you get a geolocation for that. So, you know, if you do have a couple of schools, let's say you've got 10 or 20, you can find them on Google Maps using school names or school addresses, and you can actually find their geolocation classifications quite easily. In fact, I mean, we could find any random point on Earth on the map like that. So if you know, it's quite handy, maybe over there, you know, you've got to point someone to a certain location and there's no street name in rural areas, you can just find the geolocation from that. So you can now go back to your Excel spreadsheet and you can paste that geolocations that you've copied into each of your school names. Now you might say, no, Monica, I've got 3,000 schools who participate each year in my challenge. I can't go and look up 3,000 schools geolocations. Well, there is a little bit of a cheat we can use here. On the national government database for schools, on this page where you can actually find a list of all schools. You can see we've got Eastern Cape split by province, but we've also got a national that just combines all of the data for us. On this spreadsheet, it's an Excel spreadsheet that you'll download, you will actually find all of the schools in South Africa, all of the schools' details, like their quintile details, and this spreadsheet also includes their latitude and longitude. So you can do a lookup and find your information quite easily from this bigger spreadsheet. So that reminds me, one of your key Excel skills that you just need for everything in life really is a VLOOKUP skill, and you can mathematic little equation, and with VLOOKUP you can find any latitude and longitude using your school name versus the school name that's on the database. So now we've looked up all of our data and we've got it mapped quite quickly and quite easily from this spreadsheet. So let's pause for a second. Why would we want to do this? It seems like a bit of work, you know, would we want to go through this process? So before we look into more detail about how we could, I think if we look at how we do it at the same time as why we do it, it'll become clear what the benefits are. Just quickly, I think better analytics and better communication, I think, if I need to sum it up. So now let's consider our data again. We've got our basic data now. We've got our spreadsheet, we've got this. So I've used my database and I've calculated this table. Okay, so now at first glance, I mean, it might take a bit of a time to analyze and understand exactly what have we got here. A more experienced researcher might very quickly pick out some values that are higher or lower, but it'll take you a bit of time to figure out that this is the percentage of schools participating per province. Okay, so we've got a provincial line that might count up to 100. But just essentially, it'll take you time. Someone might interpret it and you'll have to believe what it is saying. And depending on your audience, who you want to share this with, people have different degrees that they're comfortable with understanding tables and percentages. But let's say we now plot the same data on a map. We've got our quintile 1, 2 schools in blue, 3 and 4 in a lighter gray color, and our quintile 5 and our private schools in red. So you see, oops, we've got quite a lot of red over there and quite a lot of red over there. So it's very visual. We can see that the percentage of schools that are in quintile 5 is much higher in those two locations, and really we've got a difference between the provinces and the type of schools that we've got. But this map also communicates a lot more than just that. We can quickly see where most of our schools are located. That, you know, it's at the top part here, Limpopo, Gauteng, Mpumalanga, and KwaZulu-Natal. We can see that there's a way fewer in the middle of our country, and we can see, so in a glance, we're communicating a lot of information. So, yeah, maps are a bit tricky, but they allow you to actually zoom in. Let's zoom in because it's a big map, right? And a lot of information. But now we zoom into Gauteng, and we can see that we were right. That red that emerged, we see a lot of quintile 5 and private schools in Gauteng. And if we look at the surrounding areas, we see that the profile, therefore, of Gauteng and the rest of these provinces are very different. Firstly, we therefore noted, you know, if we just compare maybe the results of Gauteng to other provinces, we're not really comparing apples with apples. And it's something that we need to consider. We also note quite at a glance easily that our schools are very much clustered in the middle of Gauteng. So we might wonder what is happening on the fringes or the outside of Gauteng that, you know, the schools are basically that participate only here in the middle. So it gives us a lot of information to think and wonder about quite easily. So what has had even more difficult? What we wanted to communicate is the numbers or the percentage of our reach across the country in different districts. And we've got the district by the province, and we might have to sort and filter to understand, you know, if we're covering all. But let's look at this map. It's much prettier. We're assuming that the darker colors, you could have a little scale that I just don't have here, but the darker the colors, the higher the participation. When it's gray, there's no participation. So what this says to me at a very quick glance is we've got participation in the entire country. All districts of South Africa is covered by the challenge, but schools in all districts participate. We've got a darker colors here. We've already seen that in previous maps, and this is just a different way of showing it, that we've got darker colors showing the higher concentration and where more schools are from. Okay, so now I'm going to show you and move out into two tools. I'm going to focus on Google My Maps because it is just very easy and everybody has access to that. Then I'm going to show you what you could do with Tableau Public, which is also free, although there's a few caveats. You are posting your information online for everyone to see, but you know, in some cases that is not confidential or worrisome. So, but I will focus, I think, with given time on Google Maps. Okay, so everybody could create their own Google Maps. You can see on this page, and I believe I'm sharing the right page, you will see that I've got I'm logged in as Monica, and I've already created a couple of maps in the past. As easy as you click there on create a new map. Okay, we are going to plot our schools. So let's say on the left there, we say import. Okay, we can simply drag and drop. I'm going to go to my desktop, find my folder where I've got my data, and I am going to drop my data. So now it just asks me which is the latitude and which is the longitude. So my column says latitude, and I have to specify the longitude. So that just tells the program which columns in my Excel database I've got to and is it just taking a bit of time to do? Or did it not do? Oh, sorry. The column, now we want to mark our names. We'll maybe mark our names as a school name. So now it is actually plotting our schools, and we've got the schools plotted. So we've plotted our schools in Gauteng, and we're going to have a look at them. So if we click on the school there, we can see the school. Which one did I upload? Let's have a quick look here. I've uploaded a file that plots our schools, which is the green schools, to the rest of the schools in the country. So we remember when we saw that Gauteng, we're focused so much around the Johannesburg, Pretoria area, and we were wondering what's going on around the fringes. So if we plot the South African schools that are in this Gauteng region to our schools, right? Our schools are the ones in green. Let me just take a step back. If you style the colors, you can choose if you want to, for instance, style it by different variables. You could style it by NQF. You could style it by, in this case, we want to style it by give me the color of my schools and versus the color of the other schools in Gauteng that are not participating. So where did I find this data? That exact same government spreadsheet that had all the data for Gauteng. I took all the primary schools, which this is the space we're working in, took all the primary schools, and I indicated which are mine in my program, which are not in my program. So I uploaded that file. I asked it, please give me green. Oh, green is not my color, so you can change the color as well on your spreadsheet. Please make it blue and orange. That is fine. So I can see where my schools are relative to all the other schools in Gauteng. So let's see what a few of the uses for this could be. I've got quite a lot of schools in this area, and you could maybe see, you could target more schools because there's quite a lot, but you've only got a couple of these schools. Now I'm going to zoom out a little bit and a little bit more, and actually we can see that in terms of Gauteng, the areas where we don't have schools, there are no schools. So most of the schools in Gauteng are really located around the same area. And it isn't our fault or problem that we are only focusing on certain areas particularly. There's just fewer schools on the outlying areas. Now I'm going to show you something else. You can actually change what your base map looks like. Let's say we don't want to look at, we want to look at terrain. Okay, so we could change the terrain. So what is going on in these parts of Gauteng, where there's no schools? Well, we can see that, okay, maybe we've got a little bit more rural areas and there's not a lot of population. So maybe we shouldn't be too worried about the fact that there's no schools. You know, it's quite rural. There's no, population. You can move your map around and you can drill in and have a look. So here we've got a more interesting situation. You know, we might have certain areas where there is highly population or high density, but there's not a lot of schools. And this way we could really identify, you know, or dig into our data to see what is happening and where we might be lacking, or just find general information for purposes of finding schools, you know, and where we should be focusing. Okay, so this was one map that we could show. If you click the back button, you go back to your maps. Okay, so I want to create a different map. I am going to import. I'm going to choose my data file. Okay, and I've imported. I'm choosing my latitude again, and I'm choosing my longitude. Okay, I'm choosing my school name as my kind of identifier or the main name of my group, and I'm uploading my data. So that in essence is as easy as plotting your schools. Now I've plotted my schools who participate in the entire country, and I can see here's my schools in the various provinces. Once again, if you want to drill in, you can just zoom in to any particular place. If you click on the map, it gives you all of the information for that particular school. So you're wondering, who's this little guy here in Springbok that, oh, wow, no, look, this person's participating and they're quite far away from us. We can see what the school name is, and we can even see all of the other data that we've uploaded. We had 14 learners participate. It's a quintile 2 school, quintile 4 school. Okay, so great. We've got all of our schools uploaded. And we want to style our data, maybe by, let's see, we've created a category called regular or dip in. This is the group of people, schools who participate regularly, who participate on and off, and who participate only once off. So we can see which is the schools that are green are the ones who participate once off in a 4-year period. And, you know, so we've done a bit of data analysis, and the ones that participate on and off are the red ones, and the yellow ones are our regular participating schools. So we can actually analyze our data like this as well with this style function. What I want to show you now is if you want to add a layer, you can add a layer there in the corner and you import more data. So you can add data on top of this. I want to quickly add a perspective of post offices. You'll be amazed that if you Google what you can find in terms of data that already has latitude and longitude attached to it. So I found a spreadsheet that shows all the post offices in South Africa, now shown in blue, and their latitudes and longitudes. So I've overlaid on my map the post offices in South Africa. Now we can drill in and find information to say, okay, do we maybe have post offices close to some of our schools, and do we have problem schools such as this without a post office nearby? So we can see who might have problems and who might find it easier to access if we're using the post office as a source of communication. So this is just how you can actually overlay data on top of your data if there's anything else that you find interesting to do. In a sense, we've done two different things. We've overlaid a completely separate database onto Google, onto ours, like the post office. And on the other example, we've uploaded a file that showed our learners versus the rest of the schools, the ones who participate and the ones who don't. And we color-coded the difference so that we could see them. So these are two of the main things that we've done here. So I'm going to quickly share with you Tableau. Okay. You upload your data. You know, it's a little bit more tricky. You've got to maybe do a bit of a Google YouTube video or two on this, but it's not that much more difficult. So I'm just showing you this map. This is the one I showed you earlier. We've uploaded our data. We've put our latitude and longitude in. Looking at the district data. So in this format, we are able to actually map by districts, as it's got like a district or a natural district. In Tableau, South Africa's districts are coded in. If you want to go smaller to municipal level, you might have to do a few more tricky things, but this is where you could get this sort of map from. So Tableau has a few extra things that if you wanted to do and explain your data that we might not get from our Google example. For instance, here we've got the district to participate, and we've got the number of learners per district who participate. So we can maybe size the bubbles to show that sort of data. Here, we've got the number of schools plotted all over the country, and we've asked it to do a sum of entries for the second round. So we can see which schools are second round participants. So they've passed the first round. So what is the size? And we can see our schools here at a distance. In the Western Cape, we've got large schools with large values in the second round, and some of our more rural schools are not actually submitting many learners through to the second round. If we wanted to, we could even add, let's say we add quintile to the color scheme here. Let's just make it more easy. Exclude those where we had no data. Look, orange here says not applicable, but that means it wasn't applicable for government schools, so these are private schools. And we can see which schools, we've got private schools with the most learners going through. Quintile 5 schools are also quite large. And, you know, in this case, we're also able to zoom in and out, and we can communicate. So we've got a little bit more flexibility. We can do more with Tableau as a data visualization on maps than with Google, but both are fairly easy to use. So I'm going to go back to my presentation. If I can find it. Okay, so in my, just aware of time, so I'm going to go through this quickly. I've made a few screenshots of the Google, what you could do with Google. I haven't maybe left much in terms of Tableau because it is just a quick show and tell for that. As I said, it's just so that we can see the advantages and what we could possibly do with this and create fans of visualization. With our time today, there's not enough time to really provide a real big training exercise. So I want to open the discussion a little bit to the group. If there's anyone anyone already using geodata to visualize, and how do you think you could use this, or how are you using it for planning, implementation, or monitoring and evaluation? Is there anyone who wants to comment on this?
Thank you, Monica. Let's hear from the group in the room here. Do anyone of you would like to comment on that, please?
Yeah, maybe if I can say something.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. I'm using it for the ESCOM Expo as well, and we plot all our schools that participate. And sometimes, yeah, you find it difficult to get a school. I remember once a specific incident where I was looking for a school. I was looking on my GPS, and I still couldn't even find it. And eventually it was a small little dirt road that I have to follow to eventually get to the school. So the longitude, latitudes definitely assist you in that. And it's one of the benefits using it as well. But then also to do your reports with a glance, you can quickly see where your particular schools are situated and which schools you need to visit more often as well. But yes, especially in the rural areas, it definitely helps us.
What software are you using to plot your data?
I'm also Google Maps, but what I've seen from your input now is something definitely that I would like to investigate and see how I can incorporate that as well.
Okay, anyone else already using this or seeing how they could be using this data?
Please come in, ladies and gentlemen. If the floor is open,
Hi,
you can open your mic.
good morning.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
just-
Morning, Monica.
Hello, can I just ask that you identify yourself so that Monica knows whom she's speaking to?
Hi, you're speaking to Jackie Willems. I'm from the Science Center in Saldanha. We don't have such a big data set or schools that we're dealing with, but it would be nice also to plot some of our clubs that we have. So we've got smaller amount of schools that we're working with. But I think when we do our clubs, that would be nice to actually plot it on there and their interactivity.
Yes, Jackie, you see, even if you've got less places to plot, you can always add more things around your. So you could plot the clubs close to your schools. You could it could help you with planning routes between them. You could also see what other. If you're using Google and it's overlaid with the general Google data that's anyway there, it'll help you to see what other, maybe you need to use a church hall, or you just need to use some facility close to where you've got. You can also find more information about the general area around you. So yes, it's useful if you've got lots of data, but it's also useful, I think, as you said, if you've got fewer schools, but you just want richer data around those schools or around the clubs that you work in, or how they relate to one another, maybe. So you could definitely use it in smaller situations as well. Okay, so let me give you a little bit of my ideas about. So we could use it in planning. Let's say in our situation, we want to use the post offices, so we can overlay post office. We can see which post offices are closest. So we could plan around that. Then we already know from the research that we've done that more regular participating schools actually do better at our challenge, which means that the learners have taken in knowledge and have assimilated how to do these routine mathematical problems. So we want schools to participate more regularly, especially in the lower quintiles, where this makes a real difference for them. So that we already know that from our previous research, we can identify a school that participates regularly and see which schools around them maybe don't participate regularly. Maybe we can ask that principal to communicate the benefits to people around him, and we can try and get those people who participate on and off to actually participate more regularly. So we can use our map to find those influencers in the area and see if we can't get them to influence other people. Because, you know, it's all about creating impact, and if we create more regular participation, we create more impact. So in our planning stages, we do that. In our implementation stages, we can look at the post offices or who else is close to them. And then obviously in terms of monitoring and evaluation, I mean, there's a more and more of a pressure on everyone to actually communicate with people outside. Are we doing the right thing? Are we making a difference? And we can actually show them that we have a great reach, communicate that easily, and we can find trends more easily. Okay, so just a tip and challenge. I mean, when we're trying to find the data from the master spreadsheet, you might have trouble because school names are different. Trust me, I've been through this exercise trying to clean up a database. it is very difficult to match 100% when you're looking up. So school names aren't spelled the same. And, you know, sometimes it's Laerskool School Reyton and other times it's Reyton Laerskool. So it depends on how you've captured the name as well. Rather use the national EMIS number, and, you know, that's always the same and it's easy to look up. And it might be worth doing a data cleaning exercise once and adding all the information so that in future, if you do want to do things, it's easier to look up and find the school name. And, you know, if there's one school that you miss or a government school, go to Google, find it and look up the latitude and longitude so that your list is complete. This is what I mean, is you can just go to Google, find the latitude and longitude, and sometimes you'll see that latitude and longitude is wrong. I've seen that on that government database, you upload it and you said the school is in Mpumalanga, but it's coming up and its latitude and longitude is somewhere else. So if you do find outliers or weird things, that database isn't always 100%, and you can just fix and clean your data a little bit with that. So I don't think we've got too much time to discuss the challenges that you foresee in your own data. We've already had a comment about trouble finding somewhere, and you could drive there and look at your latitude and longitude, or find it on a map and find the latitude and longitude. So just lastly, what is the quality of the data that you guys have got? Do you see any problems in actually just adding a geocode to your data and using these sort of tools? So it's a group question again.
Monica, Alex, we do have some time. Please come in.
Hi, Monica. This is John Butler Adam. Can you hear me?
I can.
I have a rather bizarre question, because I just don't know whether the data exists, but would one be able to, is there a database that would show the percentage of grade 12 learners doing physics and maths in grade 12, for example?
No,
I think in terms of research, that's quite, this would be a very valuable tool in that regard.
Yes, so any database that you've got, you can quickly plot that, but you'd have to do a bit of a search. And as far as I know, I don't know, we've got a lot of other colleagues on this presentation. If anyone else knows of that sort of database, I know retrospectively you can calculate that based on the matric results, but that's only percentages, and it depends on what the school, I mean, the government, national government obviously has this data. When I worked with the Western Cape recently, Western Cape Education, they are able to provide this information by school, but it is a bit of a hoops to jump through, and it's not that easily accessible. So yes, the data does exist somewhere, but it is not downloadable easily from the internet. You would have to have relationships, as far as I know, to try and get that data, and they are very much you know, considering some of that as proprietary or not just for public use. Does anyone else know of a database that can be used?
Well, I guess the obvious thing to do would be to go to the acting Director General of Higher Education and ask her if she would be willing to provide access to that information. So I think a lot of it would depend on making person-to-person relationships and getting information on that basis, even if it's retrospective, and it can be plotted over several years, that could be extremely valuable.
Exactly. I mean, if someone is willing to share that, it's a gold mine. You could maybe map over that, for instance, the number of math teachers trained in mathematics, because, you know, a lot of this at times the math teachers are not specific math specialists. So, or there's only one teacher in maths in a school. So if you overlaid the data between, you know, visually, between the number of teachers or the qualification of teachers and the number of children who take or pass, then you will quite quickly see trends visually, but you need that data to start off with. Yeah.
Great. Thanks very much.
Any other comments around data challenges cleaning your data?
Monica, Jackie again. I just needed to ask, the data that you plot on Google Maps, is that data also being shared, or is it something that you have that's yours?
I can share the post office data, for instance, because I just downloaded that. The national government database I've downloaded, but the list of schools that I've plotted are obviously the list of schools that, or obviously maybe I didn't make this so obvious. I was involved in an evaluation for the South African Mathematics Challenge, presented by the South African Mathematics Foundation, and it is their data in terms of the schools who participate in their challenge in primary schools. So it is their kind of historic data from 2017 to 2020. We just got all the data of all the schools that participated in that time, did some analysis with it. So that particular database won't help you much, but if you want access to the database of post offices or the national government database of schools, that you can just go and download. I will share the link for that as well. So there's nothing really that that will benefit you directly from what I've shown you. But if you do want the post office data, I can share, and the other data is available online anyway.
Thank you. No, but what I actually meant is, if you do plot these data on the maps, does it become public because you're using Google Maps, which is a public source, or is the information, is it not public? Sorry, I was maybe not clear with the question.
No, the information is not public. It's in your own Google Maps. So maybe Google knows if you want to be conspiracy minded. Google might try and log into your map, but it's not freely visible to anyone out there, because you do log in and you create your maps, my maps. When you use Tableau public, then whatever you create and you want to save, that then does become public, because you are not paying for Tableau. But you could get a paid version for Tableau, as you could for there's a range of software. Once you get a paid version of those kind of softwares, then it does not become public.
Okay, thanks so much. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, just general questions, if we move on from that?
Monica, thank you very much. I'm sure that there are still colleagues that might have some questions. You are really welcome to ask those questions. We do have a few minutes left. The next session is starting at 10:15. I see other people here from our science centers, also other people other than Andre, who is dealing with competitions and Olympiads. I'm convinced that you will be able to use this tool. I would really like to hear from you, since we have a minute or two left. Tell me, what are you busy doing and where do you see you can use this? Anybody can open their microphone and start chatting, please. Would be lovely to hear from you.
Hi, Erna.
Hello, Gilbert.
Yes, my name is Gilbert from Nexa. And thank you very much for this wonderful topic and tool. I've actually been wondering how people do it, because I needed to plot our reach. So I really learned valuable lessons, and also not necessarily going forward. One can go back to our previous data and start plotting it properly and say, in 2010 up to now, this has been our reach. So I'm definitely gonna use it, but it's a pity we could not practice as as the presenter was presenting, like we open our own data and try and do, because hopefully sometime today or one can, because you know, if you learn the skill and you don't put it to use immediately, you might forget. So it would have been nice if we could all have opened our data and follow the steps, because it's one thing watching somebody do and another when you are doing it for yourself. But if later on I'm trying to use this tool, I'm alone in my little office, maybe next week, or
Yes, you're
where can
welcome
I?
to give me just give me an email, or we'll connect on Zoom and I'll give you a few tips. Absolutely.
Thanks. I'll get to you through air now whenever I'm using this and I forgot some of the steps, because
Okay.
yeah.
And remember, anyone, if you have a big project or you think you want to do a big data cleaning exercise and you've got a little bit of fun set aside for that, you're also welcome to reach out. Or even if you just want advice, reach out to me anytime. But as I said in the beginning, I do consult. So if there's any projects that you'd like help with more officially, I'm happy to do that as well.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Gilbert. Colleagues, just to mention to you that, first of all, we will be posting after the conference all of the presentations on our conference webpage. And Monica has already agreed that we can also post her email address. So we shall do so. And those of you who've registered for the conference, all of you will be receiving all the contact details, meaning email. And if you get stuck, of course, those of you who know me at SASTA, you are so welcome to contact me, and I will put you into contact, not just with Monica, but anyone else who has presented during this conference. Gilbert, yes, you are right. When you actually start to do things yourself, then sometimes you get stuck and it's not always that easy. But what I do find very interesting is Dr. John's comment earlier in the chat box saying that this is an excellent tool for research. And also, as you said, Gilbert, to go back to previous data. So going forward, we would really like to see, especially our science centers. Gilbert, you are one of them. And there are other people also here like Jacqueline and Andre, who's assisting with ESCOM Expo competitions, and other people. We would like to see papers from you being submitted to our conference. So please think about that. This is giving you a tool to go ahead. And for those of you who might be doing your honors or your M or your PhD degrees, here is definitely a tool that you can use. Think about that. Now, colleagues, in our chat box, our technical team has posted again the links for the next session. Our next session is starting at 10:15. So please keep that in mind as well. And if there are no other questions, and you are welcome to speak up now before I close, then I think there's definitely time, 5 minutes time to go and grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. But once more to Monica, thank you very much for your time that you've spent with us this morning, the preparation time, the sending in of the proposal that the review team has evaluated. We really enjoyed listening to you this morning.